The first season of the Hagada Holiness series has been sponsored by Mr. Leon Siboni in memory of his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Rachamim and Estreya Siboni Zichronam Livracha, and for the Refuah Shlema of Mr. Isaac Benatar. Part 8. The Plagues. Detzach Adash Be'ahav. The plagues are divided into three groupings, each of which illustrated a different aspect of God's nature. Detzach, blood, frogs, and lice. The first three plagues are associated with the river and the land, because wisdom was associated with these aspects of Egypt. By the third plague, even the magicians of Egypt were saying that these plagues were the finger of God, proving that all wisdom comes from Hashem and not from the Nile or the land. By the fourth plague, mixtures, arov, already the creatures of the land and sea were all mixed up, proving that God controlled them and not the gods of Egypt. Adash, wild animals, pestilence, and boils. The second grouping of plagues showed Egypt the goodwill of God. During each of these plagues, God distinguished between the Egyptians and the Israelites, showing that He not only caused the plague, but had the ability to protect those He wished to protect. Even though Bnei Israel deserved to be punished, God withheld His wrath from the Israelites. Lastly, Be'ahav, hail, locust, darkness, and firstborn. During these plagues, we witnessed that God was all-powerful. During the plague of hail, the Torah says, "In order that you may know that there is none like me." The hail was a combination of fire and ice, so that it contradicted the laws of nature. The next plague was locusts. Even though these creatures were tiny, they were able to wage God's war against Egypt. Darkness also contradicted nature. It was so dark that a person couldn't even get up from his place. And the final plague proved God's all-powerful ability. God can do whatever He desires. Another way to understand these groupings is that each group served a different purpose. One group was to declare God's greatness, one was to punish His enemies, and one to redeem Israel from slavery. The first group, the Tzach, during the first two plagues it was shown that the Nile was not God, and during the third plague the magician said it was the finger of God, meaning that they were now convinced of God's greatness. The second grouping, Adash, the Egyptians were punished for the treatment of the Israelites. The plague of mixed animals was a punishment for mixing up the work of the Israelite men and women. The Egyptians tried to demoralize the Israelites by making the men do women's work and the women do men's work. Since they forced the Jews to search the fields for straw, He punished the livestock with pestilence, and for beating the Israelites, He struck their bodies with boils. And lastly, Be'achav, they treated us harshly, so He struck the land with hail. He struck the land with locusts because they were not appreciative of the blessings that Yosef brought to the land of Egypt. He caused darkness so that the Israelites could search the Egyptian homes and find all their treasures before they asked for them. And the final plague, the death of the firstborn, was caused so the Egyptians would send the Israelites away with all their wealth.